We recently went back and visited my old home park, Magic Mountain, and had some thoughts about it. I think Magic Mountain is a phenomenal park with some of the best coasters on the planet, and I also think the park is headed in a great direction, but today I want to share 12 annoying things that happened around our visit that warrant some constructive criticism. Before number 12, I just want to reiterate again that I love this park and I think they're doing awesome things that could swing them toward a golden age for this park. So this video isn't for me to complain as much as it is to identify great places with room to grow so Magic Mountain can continue improving and keep on the trajectory that they are following. I'll also wrap up the video with some of the awesome things that the park did that defied my expectations. Number 12, customer service. This isn't completely an in-park thing, but it is part of the experience, so I had to include it. I had a question to clear up some confusion about my pass 2 days before our visit, so I called in and we were on hold for a long time, which is totally fine, but the hold message was repeated facts about Magic Mountain from 2024, even encouraging me to buy a pass for 2025 with a great deal, and giving outdated stats about the park too. It's not a big deal, but I wonder if they know that their hold message is 2 years old. The other thing I was going to say is they should definitely implement callbacks by customer service. That's an awesome customer service tool that dramatically improves customer experience. Since people aren't listening to the same music and message for 2 hours, you can just turn off your phone and get a call back when it's your turn to come up on the queue. The customer service rep was really friendly and helpful though once they answered. Number 11, poor ride ops communications. Let people know when a row is out of order. We got in line for Twisted Colossus, and once we were waiting in our row of choice, the trains rolled in and there was a sign on our row saying that it was out of order. That's fine, I get it. Sometimes rows malfunction and you have to close them for the day. But could you at least include a sign in the queue or something saying like, one of the 3 trains is out of order in row 5 or something? I know it doesn't make a big difference to wait one more train, but it makes a big deal because if I'm going in a group of 4, which we were, then we get separated from our group. So the effort to communicate goes a long way. So that's why it was annoying. I was separated from my group. They went on the train ahead of me and we had to wait on the train behind. Number 10, at least try with Twisted Colossus. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but it still kind of gets me and makes me a little sad every time. I understand that Twisted Colossus hasn't raced for a long time and it's not as easy as it sounds to fix it, but I wish the ride operators would at least try. I get the feeling that it's not even something on their minds anymore, or maybe management has just given up on getting it to race at all. We were hoping to race with my brother since, he was now in the train ahead of us because our row was out of order. But he had already finished the entire green circuit when we got to the top of the blue lift hill. And because the 3rd train wasn't even ready to leave the station yet, he also sat in the sun waiting for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. All I'm saying is if the reason we don't make the train stop at the bottom of the green lift hill to wait before going up, that way it can race with the blue lift hill, if the only reason we don't do that is because we don't want people to be stuck waiting in the sun, they're already doing it. They're just doing it in front of the station and not racing. So I keep hearing Kings Island has the best ride ops out there. Maybe we should just give the ride managers over there a call and see if they can do something about Twisted Colossus. Number 9, don't advertise something that's not true. This is just an extension of my Twisted Colossus racing concern, but don't advertise racing on Twisted Colossus if it's not the experience you're getting. Just like you wouldn't advertise the old paint job of Tatsu after getting a new one, I don't think it's fair to show, or honest to show pictures of your website of Twisted Colossus racing if that never happens. That's not the guest experience you offer anymore. Maybe I'm wrong about the average experience, but in the last 6 years of going to the park for a few times a year, I don't think I've ever raced on Twisted Colossus once. And if that's just not a feasible thing for the park to do anymore, that's fine. Just be honest and transparent about it and change the pictures you advertise to reflect reality like this. It's not fair to tell people and advertise, hey, come get this racing coaster, if no one ever does it. And who knows, maybe it actually is working and I've just been terribly unlucky. If that's true, then let me know in the comments. And really quick before the next one, if you're new here, I make stuff like this at least once a week. So if you like what you're seeing and want to see more, if you go ahead and subscribe, that would really help out your algorithm and help out the channel a lot to see more stuff like this and more positive stuff. Thank you. Number 8, be clear about restaurant closures. First, let us know when restaurants are closed for the day. We got all-day meal passes because we got a good deal, and maybe I'm just doing this wrong, but we couldn't find anywhere on the app to see if a restaurant was open or closed. We just saw it on the map. So because it was a slower day, several restaurants in corners of the park were closed, which is a bummer when sometimes we'd run across the park to one place that sounded interesting, only to find they weren't open, so we'd have to run somewhere else to get our meal in time. If they do show that, would someone let me know? Otherwise, I'd say it needs to be a priority to show on the app when experiences that guests expect are not available, so they don't make you walk across the park for them for no reason. Second, let us know when restaurants will close early. This isn't a very big deal, but we did try to get one last meal before the park closed because we had a free meal every 90 minutes with our pass, and luckily we ended up getting it. But everyone else who walked up behind me was turned away because they were out of food, even though the park didn't close for 5 more minutes. And it wasn't just because they were out of food, but it was also just because they said, we're not taking any more guests. So the park didn't close for 5 more minutes. And I know this sounds super nitpicky and it's not a very big deal, but I was just thinking it would be a bummer to buy a meal voucher and then to go cash it in and to be turned away, not being able to use it, going home thinking you just wasted your money. The woman who turned the guests away told them that the restaurants at the front of the park would be open until the park closed in 5 minutes, so they could go there if they wanted. We were by Gold Rusher in the back of the park, so there was no way any of them were getting up to those restaurants before 6 o'clock when the park closed. It makes sense to close your restaurants at the back of the park a little early, but if that's what they decide to do, that's fine, but you should just let us know. That's the thing, like, there are many decisions that are fine that you can make. You can say, we're going to close these in the back of the park because the park is empty, but transparent communication goes a long way. If you just communicate those decisions so people don't make plans based on unrealistic expectations due to vague policies. Number 7, early ride closures, even by a few minutes. For the people who try to get the maximum experience out of the theme park visits, you may know this feeling. There are 7 minutes left until the park closes, and you only have time to hop on one more line before the line is sealed off at that closing time. So you decide to run to the other half of the park, trying to make it to the one ride you missed before the park closes. Now imagine you get to that ride 2 minutes before the park closes and you're all proud of yourself, but the queue has already been sealed off because the ride operators didn't want to run any extra trains and wanted to go home early. That's what happened to us, in a way, at Magic Mountain. As I mentioned in previous videos, we recently had a kid. This was a first major theme park my wife and I visited with a kid, so we were getting used to the routine of switching between rides and taking pauses for nursing and stuff. Because of that, my wife hadn't gotten on a great deal of coasters that day, so as the park was closing, she ran to get on Gold Rusher for one final ride before the park closed. She was the closest to Gold Rusher, so she ran to the queue and got there 4 minutes before the park closed. That's 4 minutes. That's a lot of time. The line said closed, so she went to ask the operators, and they announced, oh, it's not running anymore, it's because the park is closing. So she started to walk away and then figured, well, I'm going to ask again because there's 3 minutes left now. So she went to the operators and was going to say, hey, the park doesn't close for 3 minutes. And instead of saying anything to her or saying, no, it's closed, they just kind of all looked at their feet and basically ignored her, pretending they couldn't hear her. Kind of a silly, childish tactic, but I guess they figured if they pretended they couldn't hear her, she'd leave. And it worked. My wife was very polite, by the way, so she wasn't intimidating anything, and because she was polite, she also left. And it's probably a good thing I wasn't there because I would have been frustrated. It didn't wreck my wife's day completely, but that did bug me quite a bit. And this was a situation where the ride was functioning well and had been open with no maintenance concerns, and I feel like the operators just wanted to get home earlier. I think it was more frustrated because my wife hadn't gotten to ride much that day, and it had already been a kind of rough day for her, learning how to do a theme park with an infant, and instead of ending with a coaster, she had to end the day feeling ignored. She said when that happened, it felt like she had just been stomped on, and at the end of a rough day for her, it made her think maybe coming here was just a mistake. That made me pretty sad. Again, this isn't the biggest deal, but I think it's a perfect example of how 4 minutes is the difference between a great ending to the day and a bitter one. And if you close ride lines before the park closes, that's fine, but just communicate it clearly, as in telling us that you're going to close rides early. If not, you're just lying to us and cutting corners. If you cannot give guests a great final memory in the park, many times it doesn't matter what other memories you gave them throughout the day because the last memory is the one they go home with. So I'd suggest, unless there is a clear and communicated policy about closing lines early, make it a priority to keep all lines open until the park closes, because cutting corners even by a few minutes can quickly change a guest perspective of the park. And, it left a bad taste in my wife's mouth because she thinks that the park operators just kind of don't care about her. Number 6, slow dispatch times, especially on Apocalypse. So the first thing is something I don't completely understand, so I won't say too much about it, but I do see a lot of people with these blue papers that let them skip the line once for each ride. If you know what those are and kind of the policies around them, put it in the comments so I can better understand that, because I couldn't find too much on it. But I'm pretty sure that these are papers for people with disabilities that get to skip the line. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. I'm not complaining about that. I think obviously if you're confined to a wheelchair your whole life, I will gladly take a little bit of inconvenience so you can go ride roller coasters. That's awesome. I do think if there are people who are being dishonest or lying so that they can skip the line pass with a disability voucher, it kind of stomps on people that actually do have disabilities and takes advantage of them. So that's not cool if people are doing that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about how we handle this with mostly the ride operations for Apocalypse. So this was the shortest I've ever seen the line at Apocalypse, which was sweet, and I really love this ride so much. It just surprises me every time. In an earlier video, I made a point about skip the line passes, and it really, really slows down dispatch times when people skip the line, even if they're justified to do it. I have an idea for how to fix that while respecting those people, because it really is a problem. So my wife and I waited for the front row of Apocalypse, and for every other train, someone came up the exit and took our seat. That's not the issue I'm talking about here, that's a separate thing. But the issue is that they let all the line skippers choose their own rows, sit down, and get their seatbelts on, all before they open the gates for the rest of the guests aboard. Then all the guests have to go in, set their stuff down, sit down, and put their seatbelts on. So they've just double the time it takes to load a train because they do the process twice per train. This isn't a perfect solution, so let me know if you have any ideas that are better than this, but here are some solutions I have. First, you could have someone, a worker or something, stand in for those line skippers and wait in the row that they choose ahead of time. That way a group of four knows not to choose that row if they don't want to have to be separated from their friends. That way, you can open the gate for everyone at the same time as the line skippers are getting in, and cutting off your loading time, or cutting it down by almost half. I know it's not a perfect solution, but I don't really know the perfect way to go about this, but I do think doubling your loading time per train is really not good, and I've seen with Apocalypse, it's just such slow operations that even a short wait time can turn into a long one. Number 5, better indications of where people with strollers should walk. Okay, so this one doesn't affect that many people, especially if you don't have kids, but I did want to bring it up. One person in our group got really sick, so I was with her by Tatsu helping out, and my wife went to the other side of the park by Goliath to pick up a meal, and she was pushing the stroller with our kid in it. I told her we were at Tatsu, and she wasn't super familiar with the park layout, so she looked it up on the app, and it told her to go to the back of the park by Gold Rusher and go up the hill to Samurai Summit, and then down the stairs to the entrance of Tatsu. But she couldn't tell from the map that there were stairs, so everything ended up being just fine. I just met her at the top of the hill and then helped carry the stroller down to Tatsu, which maybe wasn't the safest, but it was way better than going down and around. And we went back to Tatsu where our sick friend was resting. And I know this is a tiny thing, but I thought it was a bit funny that it sent her up and down the giant hill, rather than just around where there's not such an elevation spike and where there aren't any stairs. I also thought it would be a really nice feature to select if you have something that can't go up or downstairs when you're trying to find the route, but I know that's not as easy to implement as it sounds. Number 4, just implement a single rider line. I think it's a huge win for parks when they implement single rider lines, and I get that maybe parks don't do it because it might make guests feel uncomfortable, but I think that would smooth up operations a ton and give guests more options. You could even make it a policy to ask each person in a row by themselves if they're okay with a single rider joining them before putting them there. I don't know. I think it's a good thing. I met a really cool dude riding single rider on Full Throttle. Anyway, my brother and I were trying to ride Full Throttle in time to ride one last ride before the park closed. So I waited in the fast lane, and when I got to the front of the fast lane, I just explained to the ride attendant, I said, "Hey, I'm a single rider, and I was just wondering if, to make things easier for everyone, and smoothing this up, I could fill in one of the half-empty rows." And the guy was really cool, and he let me in because there was a row with only one person in it, and it didn't slow down the operations one bit. The funny thing was, my brother went up right after me and asked him the same thing, and the guy said no. I don't know what that was about, but that was pretty funny, and my brother did end up getting on relatively soon later, so it was all fine. But I think parks who have implemented single rider lines are really doing the guests a solid and helping lines move faster too. So if there are any factors of this I didn't consider, But I was just thinking, the fact that he told me yes and told my brother no, he was probably just playing it by ear. And, you know, if there's no policy, I don't blame the guy, it's the policy in place. But I think if there's a policy in place to just allow single riders, that would really make things a lot simpler. Number 3, stopped in the sun. Okay, this one's not a big deal at all. It was just something we laughed about. But when you finish Apocalypse, the train is supposed to stop under the shade roof while you wait for the next train to dispatch. We were in the front row and the brakes hit a little bit too late, so the first few rows were outside of the structure and we were stuck in the sun for a few minutes, maybe like a minute and a half or something, before the next train in front of us dispatched so we could go into the station. No biggie really, I just thought it was silly that, you know, they built this whole structure to keep us in the shade and we ended up being in the sun anyway. Number 2, lots of park area closed. It was really interesting how at the top of Samurai Summit, all of the land and the old entrance to Superman up to the walkway down the hill of Samurai Summit, that was all closed. And it makes sense. You don't really have any rides or activities or shops up there, so you don't have any reason to make people maintain the park property that no one's really using. I am excited though for when they finish the throw glider, because it sounds like their next mission is to make the top of the hill a little more awesome and a little less lonely. Number 1, bad loading kills park atmosphere. I thought about this when we got back in the station for Twisted Colossus. We'd already been finished with the ride and sitting in the train station, or sitting on the brake station just outside of the loading station for a few minutes, waiting for the train in front of us to leave. After somewhere between 1 and 4 minutes, we finally were sent back into the station and the ride operator asked over the microphone, "Welcome back, riders, how was that ride?" And it was pretty quiet, like no one reacted or clapped or screamed, and he made some sort of joke or comment about how, "Oh man, you guys must not have liked it," or something. You know, he was disappointed that we did not show excitement. Everyone loves Twisted Colossus, and of course we loved it, but when someone's sitting in the train for 3 minutes outside of the station, the excitement fades and they start talking about things like what they want to do next, or, "Oh man, this is taking a long time." And it is really fun in theme parks when smooth operations make it possible for the riders to come right into the station immediately after they finish the ride. I know that's a hard ask, but part of the magic of a park atmosphere comes from indirectly interacting with the people in front of you as you see them come into the station laughing and catching their breath after a wild ride. During our park visit, the rides that I at least remember we were stopped for quite a bit before entering the station on were Tatsu, Goliath, Riddler, Full Throttle, Twisted Colossus, and Ninja. Ninja's different because you end with a chain lift hill, but it's the same effect. Apocalypse, and maybe Wonder Woman. This isn't a terrible thing. Some rides like Full Throttle are even designed to be like that. But it definitely is an amazing opportunity to transform the park experience a little bit more, letting guests get off the ride while they're still excited about it. And it definitely doesn't make ride operators to be disappointed that guests don't have the same excitement of riding a roller coaster after they've been sitting outside the station for 3 minutes. Okay, enough of the annoying stuff. Here's a bunch of positive things about our trip that defied expectations in a good way. Number 1, this was probably the best ride I have ever had on Wonder Woman. It might have been because the cars already had some time to warm up throughout the day, but I think it's also because I normally try to ride this in the back, and today I rode this in the very front. And I know the back gives you more airtime, so I normally would try that, but now I'm convinced that on single rail coasters, you gotta ride it in the front to get the best ride. Mostly because the whippy elements happen at the top of the hills, and the front car always hits the top of the hills with the highest velocity, so it's much more whippy when you're riding in the front. Number 2, we got to walk on to a ton of rides, which helped us make up for lost time because, like I said earlier, one person in our group got really sick. And probably also because it was midweek, it was Thursday, and school was just getting out, and Looney Tunes Land was just announced to be closed until its grand opening that Saturday, so a lot of crowds might have decided to not come until everything was open. But yes, I will never complain about walking on to roller coasters. Number 3, like I said, one member of our group got really sick and threw up after Tatsu, thanks to the notorious pretzel loop, and a lot of helpful people came and checked her out and made sure that she was okay, because she was on the ground sick for a while. The head of the entire rides department also came over and gave us a skip the line pass for one ride to make up for the lost time, and it happened to be a ride that actually had a long line that day, so that was really nice. Number 4, the all-day dining plan was a great deal. $28 for a free meal every 90 minutes. If you time it right, which we did, we got 5 free meals that day, and there was only, I think, 8 hours of park opening time, and that comes out to a little over $5 a meal. Other than the stiff pizza we had right at the end, all the food was super tasty. Number 5, Apocalypse is so underrated. Every time I ride it, I'm surprised just how much I enjoy it. It's a forgotten masterpiece at Magic Mountain. Number 6, there is a sweet hangout spot in the Coaster Candy Lounge that we found right after Apocalypse. There are a few soft seats and the AC is amazing, especially since we needed to help our daughter cool down, so that was really nice to have a place to sit down in the air conditioning. Number 7, Looney Tunes Land looked pretty awesome. We walked all the way through Looney Tunes Land on the way out, and pretty much the entire space was open and available to walk through. And all the signs looked great, all the new areas looked fun. I think we'll have to wait for the shrubbery on Taz's trail to grow more before it starts looking really cool. But I thought everything looked awesome. The rides got makeovers, they got new paint jobs, and like the Kiddie Roller Coaster Canyon Cruiser got a new paint job, which looks great. And it will hopefully be a creative shift towards nicer rides and ride experiences while also offering more free play options for families. Number 8, Drop of Doom is finally back, and it is amazing, now the second tallest drop tower in the world. It might just be me, but I think they pause you for longer at the top now to add to the suspense, because we were up there twice as long as I expected. I feel like Lex Luthor normally gives a speech, and then the music builds, and then you drop. But this time, I felt like we were just sitting there for like 15 to 20 seconds in silence, and it definitely added the suspense and was freaky, so if they did that intentionally, I think that was a great move. We also got to see the track pieces for their upcoming thrill glider out in the parking lot. Number 9, Jetstream got an awesome paint job. It looks super good from below, and it's still one of my favorite rides in the park. It was a hot day with a long line, so it was awesome that we were given a skip the line pass for this. And this is a ride that I could ride over and over. Unfortunately, I didn't realize until after my wife got on that I left my glasses in the stroller, so that's why I don't have a POV video of that ride. So that's a bummer, but I'll get it next time. Number 10, Hurricane Harbor is looking awesome. It looks like they did a complete repainting of just about every slide and tower there, and it looks sweet. So also now the fence on the outer border of Hurricane Harbor, that's the one that you walk by as you're heading into the park, it's no longer the chain link fence with that green mesh, but now it's a nice like brown wood, and it looks great. Number 11, Tatsu was running 2 trains, which I guess it hadn't been running for a while, and they went back to 2 trains for Tatsu's 20th birthday. Tatsu is as awesome as ever, besides the throw up and all, and I'm glad they put it on 2 train operations. Number 12, Revolution was also running 2 trains the entire day, so that was super awesome. This one surprised me the most because Revolution is normally not one with a long line, but yeah, no line the whole day, and they're running 2 trains. It was awesome. I think they did this in honor of the 50th birthday, and I respect them for that. I rode this one twice while I was there. Number 13, now that I think about it, actually, most places were actually running 2 trains when we got there to the station, which made me really happy because it was a slow day, and a year ago on a slow day like this, I feel like every ride would be running 1 train. So I'm proud of Magic Mountain for keeping their rides operating faster despite the crowds being low. Overall, I think Magic Mountain has come really far and is headed in a great direction. One evidence of this is that most of the pain points I mentioned are all mostly old problems, like I've experienced them in years past and they're old news. But all the surprisingly good things I mentioned are all new things. So old problems at the park and new solutions. I'm really excited for the future of Magic Mountain, and I trust that many of these things that I addressed are things that they're working on. The ones that I think are the hardest to change from a managing standpoint are the ride ops problems, because that's not something you can just change with a system perfectly. You have to do good trainings and things, but I think they can do it. And maybe with this new park president, they will. So like I said, I didn't want to bag on Magic Mountain in this video. I just wanted to point out some points for concern, and everything really isn't that big of a deal, except this situation that hurt my wife's feelings quite a bit about being just ignored. That one did bug me quite a bit because, that's my wife. You don't do that. And as always, to wrap this up, Jimmy tip number 2. If you are planning on buying a meal at a theme park for a singular visit, see if they have an all-day dining pass first, like they did at Magic Mountain. Maybe it's not always this cheap, but a normal meal there without a drink or side is about $20 on its own. But we got to eat a free meal every 90 minutes for just $28 for the whole day. So for an extra $8, you're getting 4 more meals. So if you're just going to eat there more than once, don't waste your money on individual purchases. And that's a wrap on this video. If you liked the video, please like it. And if you're new here and want to stay in the loop for more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, and it would really help out the channel too. Here's what's up at Jimmy Does Coasters. I make content about things like park and coaster ratings, park improvements, roller coaster POVs, park predictions, monthly news, and more. I make a new video every week, and whenever I have an available slot to fill, I let you vote on which video should come next. I also post a weekly YouTube poll for Matchup Monday to let subscribers vote on some of the biggest coaster debates, which will tally up at the end of the year for a recap. Also, if you want a sneak peek of my rough draft schedule for the next few weeks, you can check the banner photo on my channel's homepage. I'll keep that updated as new videos roll out. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and if you want to follow me there, my handles are in the video description. If you made it to this point of the video, you're awesome, you're a real one. Have an awesome day, and I hope your next coaster ride isn't too far away.